Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Tom's Hardware Show for November 12th, 2020. Sharon is out this week, so I'm stepping in and hosting for this week. I'm Abram Pellich, the editor-in-chief of Tom's Hardware. We're joined today by managing editor Matt Safford and senior editor Jared Walton and special guest Michael Gray from Corsair to talk about some of the amazing things going on at Corsair. As always, we're taking your questions live in the chat rooms on YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, Twitch, and of course, if you're not watching live, you can catch us on archivally on YouTube, Facebook, and via audio wherever podcasts are. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wow, I mean, your home office just really beats everybody's home office. It really means we've got to up. I mean, not only do I have to clean up, but I have to up my game. What are some of the things you have behind you?
Okay, so back here, I've actually got a little Battlefield statue, Overwatch statue, Soldier 76, some cool Blizzard stuff. I've got little figurines and a mug, and then Fallout Pip-Boy over here. You got the Doom helmet and the oh god, I forgot the name of that enemy from the two Doom collector's editions, the 2016 and the Eternal,
Revenant?
and then yeah, the Revenant. There we go. Good lord, how do I not remember this?
You're getting old like me.
Is it the gray? Can you tell? And then a couple collector's editions with signed copies and just some other cool stuff and hardware stuff that I've collected through my time in the industry.
Wow, that's amazing. If I were to show the things I've collected through my time in the industry, it would be this drawer of USB drives. It's not nearly as cool.
That dresser over there is all cables.
Right.
The cable dresser, nice.
Yeah.
Cables and USB flash drives. That's what I've got to show for this career.
I like the cable dresser though. Add a couple umlauts that could be like an actual piece of IKEA furniture.
Yeah, we could. But can you find the cable that you're looking for, Matt? When you're actually looking for it, right? I mean, I spent a long time the other day just looking for a DisplayPort cable.
I had a bin of cables it's probably dating back to 2004 or thereabouts, and I finally it was in the garage and I was like, I got to go through this and look at what I still need. And there's like KVM switches that were for old PS2 and VGA connectors. I'm like, okay, this is gone. I was really happy to throw out a whole box of cables. I was like, oh yeah, these are all VGA and DVI and even some RCA component plugs. So I was like,
a Firewire cable about a month ago.
Yep.
Yes. Well, speaking of cables, we know that Michael. Can you tell us our audience a little bit about yourself? What are the things that you're in charge of at Corsair?
Sure. So I'm a senior product line manager at Corsair, and I'm working specifically on keyboards and products related to keyboards. I also have some other strategic projects and products in my portfolio that kind of reach into some of the other parts of the HID business, the human interface device, peripherals business at Corsair. But what I'll be talking to you guys about today is all these amazing new keyboards we've got coming out, and that's really kind of my main focus right now.
So what are the latest Corsair keyboards?
So last month we launched two new great keyboards. First was the K100, and this is really kind of our most premium, our most high-end flagship product. It introduced a lot of great new features. It's got absolutely beastly performance that we've really optimized with the new technology we've got called AXON, as well as a lot of great new features where we just kind of elevate what it is to be a premium keyboard. And then we also have another product kind of in the middle of our stack called the K60, where we wanted to provide better value to customers looking for keyboards anywhere from like a 79 to a 109 MSRP, where we've got this nice kind of brushed aluminum finish. We've got kind of a nice, clean, modern look. And it's got these new Cherry Viola key switches, which are these just really great key switches when somebody's looking for something in a price range, but they don't want like a membrane mechanical, kind of that clicky rubber dome type thing. Now they have this great option at that kind of price point where they can actually get a full Cherry mechanical experience.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry. Trying
He's speechless.
I'm less speechless, and I'm trying to leave, as good as my microphone is, trying to leave my background noise speechless too, since I didn't turn on the NVIDIA broadcast sound muting, because I have mixed, as much as I like it, I have mixed feelings about how it kind of cuts the highs and lows off. But so speaking of Cherry Viola switches, are you guys happy with them? Do you think that this is a one-off, or do you think it's a kind of thing where we might see it used more broadly in the future?
I don't think it's a one-off. I think it'll definitely be used more broadly, and the reason is it's a really great kind of value version of kind of a Cherry MX Red. It delivers a very similar feel. Granted, the force travel curve is a little bit different. It also kind of delivers a different backlighting experience too. So the great part about the Switch is it allows us to get 100% mechanical keyboards now into price points that were really dominated by membrane mechanical, which really are just rubber domes with a bit of a click on them. So it's still really a membrane keyboard you're getting. So we really enjoyed being able to bring something that was 100% mechanical with our great partner Cherry to market to kind of give some people a better experience when they have a budget of $99 and below.
That's great. So Viola is kind of like red feel. What's your favorite Switch?
Oh man. So I used to actually be a Cherry Brown loyalist because I really liked that kind of tactile bump to kind of let you know that you've pressed the key. So if you're in a game like Counter-Strike, something very kind of twitchy, you sometimes just kind of need a kind of a little quick shift. And what that allowed you to do is know, okay, I've actually pressed the key. I can release because I just wanted that little tick of movement. But on the other side of the Browns, they kind of slow your gaming down just a little bit because that bump can kind of slow your bottoming out. And again, we're talking like milliseconds or nanoseconds of difference. Now I'm firmly on our new Corsair OPX switches. My keyboard in front of me right now is a K100 with our new OPX optical mechanical key switches, and I just love them just because they're fast, they're ultra smooth, and they're just great for gaming.
So why did Corsair decide to bring a 4,000 hertz polling rate and multi-threading to the K100? Why is that? Why are those features important to have?
So that's a great question. So I'll kind of start by talking about, we've got this new technology called AXON. And what AXON is basically we have this, instead of just a conventional firmware on the keyboard now, we've got this real-time operating system that actually has some great features like hyperthreading, or like enhanced hyperthreading. So it's actually smartly parallelizing the workload instead of most products out there just kind of function in serial. So they process like I process keystroke, keystroke, lighting, keystroke, keystroke. Now we can process a bunch of different things at the same time. Plus it's deterministic, which means it can actually decide what's a priority and decide to process that first. And it's faster. So it's more optimized to process everything very quickly. So that AXON allows us to deliver 4x better performance and throughput than previous generation keyboards, which means you get 4,000 hertz polling and 4,000 hertz key scan. So me pressing a key on my keyboard versus anything out there in the market and having that signal received and sent to PC takes as little as 0.5 milliseconds. The fastest keyboards on the market that I've seen can do around maybe 2 to 2.5 to 3, somewhere in there. And then conventional kind of, gaming keyboards can be anywhere up to like, 8, 10, I've seen as high as like 14 milliseconds. And so that really slows your inputs down. And if you look at things like NVIDIA Reflex, we're now looking really closely at how long it takes for your press to not only reach your PC, but also be processed by your PC. And then AXON also has one other great benefit is while it's doing all of this, it can also run 20 layers of onboard hardware lighting at the same time, which means if you're not running RIQ software, it can actually play back some really complex profiles you can save to the 8 megabytes of memory while it's doing all of this. So you're getting just the best experience any keyboard could possibly offer.
So the keyboard also has an IQ control wheel,
yep.
Correct? What does that do?
So we've had this volume roller on our keyboards for a really long time. It's obviously a great way to scroll through your volume. And I think Corsair might have been one of the first to actually introduce this on a keyboard. I don't have the exact dates, but in around 2011 it is, we kind of introduced our first keyboard with volume roller, and you've seen a lot of keyboards since then come out with the volume roller. And you could actually reprogram the volume roller, most people don't know, to kind of do some other things. Well, the IQ control wheel kind of takes that a step further in that we wanted people to not only out of the box have access to all these different great things they could do. So you can do like zoom in and zoom out in certain applications. You can do media jogging. So if you're in iTunes and you roll it, you can kind of move through the track. So if you want to get to a certain part of the track, you could do horizontal and vertical scrolling. Like if you're in maybe, I don't know, an Excel document or something, you can also do your own custom modes. So if you have a workflow that you have like a shortcut you can bind to that wheel, you can do that. In a game, if you have a specific command where you really want to fine tune something, you can do that too. It basically opens up all these possibilities that it's not dedicated to volume. Now you have an input that could just do whatever you need it to do at the time, and it's fully programmable. And you know, Corsair, we're all about making sure our products are as programmable as possible.
So I'm poking at mine right now because I've got one too, and I'm like, what does the button do when you press it? Because it changes colors on mine, but doesn't seem to do anything.
So the change of colors actually indicates what mode you're on. So if you look in the IQ software and the QSG, it'll tell you what modes are available on the device. And you can change the colors of those modes. Like, for instance, if you want your brightness to be red or a different color so that you remember it better, you can absolutely go in and make that change. And in IQ, you can create your own custom modes and then save them back onto the keyboard or just have them available in software.
So, Matt, you had a chance to review the K100. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, the wheel is really interesting. I still haven't really found a good application for it in a game, in part because you have to kind of move your entire hand off of the keyboard to get to the wheel. But I was just using it today for zooming in and out in Photoshop and, and just in images and Windows, making cover images for stories and stuff, trying to easily getting in really close to fix a detail or something, smooth something over. It's really helpful for that. And then aside from that, it's an extremely solid feeling, premium feeling keyboard. I agree. As soon as the first time I used a keyboard with a volume rocker, it probably was a Corsair. I don't want to use anything that doesn't have that. Because and I was actually just thinking today what I might want to do. I use the volume rocker, but I may switch and change up the wheel to control volume and the rocker to zoom in and out, because I think it's a little easier to just kind of lean forward, and get in and out in that way. So, but that's, it's extremely versatile, very capable. I think, the only limitations really are on my end. I feel like, in always in reviewing these high-end gaming components, I just feel like such an inadequate gamer to really take advantage of, all of the progressions. The keys feel great, but I'm just not good enough to really notice a difference in terms of speed.
So that leads me to another question, which is who gets the most out of optomechanical switches? Is it primarily professional gamers?
I would say it's two groups of people. Yeah, professional gamers, or I would say competitive gamers. You don't have to be professional, let's face it. You just have to be kind of wanting to be better and kind of take gaming seriously. And those would be people competitive. It could be anywhere from an amateur gamer, obviously, all the way up to, a pro that's on the main stage at some of these major tournaments. But also people who are really fast, accurate typists. Being able to not have to press the key all the way down and having that shorter actuation allows them to potentially type even faster. So if they're very efficient, they can kind of get more out of it there. But even just general gamers, the fact that it's fast actuation, zero debounce, and all that other fun stuff, and our AXON technology means that they're getting their actions into the game faster than their existing keyboard. So that could give them that ever so slight edge. So for example, one of the games I play frequently enough is League of Legends, and being able to, and if you're any good at League of Legends, you smart cast, which means you basically press the key, and wherever your cursor is on the screen, that's where your spell is going to go, your ability, I should say. So what that allows you to do then is have more comfort that when you press that key, and I'm ready to cast this, that it's going to go exactly where I want it to as quickly as possible. So that makes me more accurate.
That makes sense. We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I will pop up a couple of those. Christian asks, why don't you put the cable? Why is the cable integrated into the keyboard, which is something I think we see on most keyboards?
Yep. So virtually all keyboards out there today still have a fixed cable. And by the way, I love customer feedback. I love to kind of, see what we can do to really kind of delight customers. And so one of the biggest pieces of feedback I've gotten, especially with the latest products, is why isn't the cable detachable? We'd really like to see a detachable cable. So believe you me, I'm looking into kind of all this great feedback I get. And as far as RMA goes, I would say that we don't really see almost ever any cases where the cable is damaged, and that's caused the product to fail. The cables are themselves kind of pretty beefy, and we've got a nice nylon mesh wrap on them to provide protection and keep them from kind of catching, so they could get damaged. So yeah, we really don't see any cable damage causing any failures.
How much power comes through the cable, like that the keyboard needs? Because it used to be like a single USB port, and you get that on cheap keyboards, but like all the gamer keyboards nowadays are almost always 2 ports. And
so you have no idea how great a question that is, and how little is kind of really understood about the power consumption. But basically, we require customers have 2 USB 3.0 ports, and that's to make sure we can pull up to 900 milliamps of power. The keyboard itself can draw anywhere from 900 to maybe up to 1300 milliamps. And then it also has a USB pass-through for 2.0 that also can draw 500 milliamps. So what people don't realize is when you have 2 connections required, and usually one is used for USB pass-through, that the keyboard itself isn't, even though it might say it's USB 2.0, it's actually drawing more than 500 milliamps. And then the pass-through is drawing could draw up to 500 milliamps depending on what the customer has plugged in. So there's a lot of talk about USB topology when it comes to keyboards that not everyone really understands. So when you have a detachable cable, by the way, that means you can't have pass-through anymore because it's only one USB connection. So you have to have like a hub in the keyboard. That's going to add latency, add more power consumption. So there's a lot of different things that go into keyboard topology, especially when it comes to USB connection. That just kind of make it more complicated than maybe anyone realizes. And maybe I'm talking too much here, but it's really an interesting topic.
That's interesting.
I love the
never really
idea of
thought
a
about
USB.
how much power it uses.
I love the idea of a USB hub in your keyboard. Like I had a previous keyboard had 2 USB ports, and I'm not plugging in high power devices. I'm like, that's my mouse and my my headset adapter or whatever. But at the same time, I'm like, if you gave me 4 ports and you said, oh, and you got to plug it into power nub, I'd just be like, no, screw that. Like, go back to USB 1 port.
Yeah. So that's really tricky. That as a manufacturer, we kind of have to balance the user experience, how many USB ports they might have, what they might try to plug into it, as well as detachable cable and all this other stuff, and latencies to try to find the right solution on a per product basis.
Now, aren't there some USB ports can provide 1 amp or 2 amp, or is that out of spec, or how's that work?
So it's actually very interesting too. So USB 2.0 by default should be at least 500 milliamps, but newer motherboards, and by the way, when I say newer, I think I'm talking like decade old now. Those ports can usually provide a full amp, but we can't always rely on. We don't know what motherboards people have, right? There's a million different motherboard models out there, so we have to say, look, for this keyboard, we need you to plug into a 3.0 port or 3.1 Gen 1 or what, it's gone by a lot of different names over time, to make sure you're getting that 900 milliamps, because, we can't control the motherboard and how much power it's providing. So we can just go by the USB spec. But you're right. Yeah. USB 2.0 ports typically today supply at least 1 amp.
Yeah, no question. But you have obviously you have a lot of. I mean, it's great to be able to do a pass through without having to introduce latency like that. So speaking of latency, someone asks, will it be possible to use a single wireless key to control both mouse, keyboard, and headphones in the future? I think he's talking about wireless peripherals, obviously.
Yeah, and I'm assuming talking about like the receiver dongle that you usually plug into the computer, right? We actually have that today with our Slipstream technology. We have the K57 wireless keyboard, as well as a few mice such as Harpoon wireless and Iron Claw wireless that actually can unify to one Slipstream dongle with a special version of software, so that you can connect 2 devices to one product.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 2 products to one dongle device. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a big issue when you're short, especially if you're using a laptop or you're short on ports. Yep. Having the ability to do more than one dongle or doing pass through with the wired one is great too.
Yep.
I have multiple USB hubs connected to both of my desktops. I can't deal with running out of USB ports.
Yeah. So the great news is in K100 we still have a USB pass-through, so you're still getting one extra port, even though the keyboard is plugged into 2 ports on your system.
At least you have that's another port on top of your desk. I find there's a different world on top of my desk than on the desktop, which probably should be put onto a marble pedestal, but is actually. I mean, the work that people do on our desktops, we probably should put them on a marble pedestal, but I don't have enough tabletop space for that. So
no, but it is. I mean, it's really handy. It's really handy for certain things. Like I used to have a little Bluetooth dongle, and like if I stuck it behind the computer or even on top of the computer under my desk, like the quality of the signal would be terrible. I'd move more than like 5 or 6 feet away from the system and it would start to cut out. But if you can plug it into the back of the keyboard, it's right there, unobstructed by anything. So
yep,
definitely helps for certain things.
Yeah, no question. I think we're all torn between having everything we need on the desk and having clean space.
I wish I were cleaner. I'm not.
I recently redid my workspace to have 4 monitors at once. So when I did that, I like put them all on this one ARM setup. So it's like, oh great, now I have all this space. And I was like, great, it's so feng shui. I have like nothing here but my keyboard and my mouse. And then my 8-year-old son comes along and he's bringing like all kinds of peripherals to my desk that I have to like, move away. But there's always
you need dressers.
Yeah, no, I mean I have a table behind me and like a bunch of IKEA stuff, and it's like but then he'll even come into my home office when I'm not here and start messing with stuff. But it's my fault. I encouraged him. So someone asks, are there any plans for low profile premium 10 keyless low profile keyboards?
That's a good question as well. So obviously I can't talk to any future product that we may or may not be working on, but the general idea is there's a lot of opportunity out there and there's a lot of potential, and I've gotten a lot of great customer feedback since I started working on keyboards specifically. So I've been at Corsair for about 5 years, but I started focusing on keyboards specifically in early 2019. So I've gotten a lot of great feedback from customers. I've seen a lot of great trends in the industry, and there's a lot of stuff I'm working to capitalize on, as well as to give consumers some really great new experiences that they're really looking for. So I can't talk to that specifically, but I love the feedback, and stuff like that is absolutely top of my mind.
Yeah, I there's a couple of trends in keyboards that personally I've had a hard time getting, but I know there's the wonderful thing about keyboards is there's so many different ones and so many different standards. Like I've not totally understood. I totally don't understand, and I invite anyone in the chat room to pipe up, or anyone here, the trend toward like really, really small keyboards, like 60%. I don't get it. Like, why would you want to have fewer keys? I want more keys. I know no one really wants to accommodate my desire for more than 104 keys, but I don't get why people like, is desk space at that much of a premium? But I know Corsair doesn't really make anything below. I think you guys do make a 10 keyless, right?
We
but
do.
Nothing below that.
Yeah, we've got the K65 RGB Lux and Rapid Fire keyboards. Those are 10 keyless options. But the reason people kind of move towards smaller keyboards is not just for desk space, but for positioning when they're gaming. So me personally, I keep my keyboard almost 0-degree tilt. I might tilt it just a little bit to the left. Gamers these days are actually tilting anywhere from 45 to even 90 degrees. So instead of typing like this, they've got one hand doing QWR WASD like this in front of them, and so that is a more comfortable posture for them when they're gaming. So a smaller keyboard allows them to do that, especially on a smaller desktop. And then there is an increasing trend of people kind of taking their keyboards with them when they travel. I've certainly seen people. We have people at the office at Corsair that actually take their keyboard, between work and home, and they've programmed it, which is something Corsair keyboards are highly programmable, allowing them to put all of their macros for like gaming, for workflow, for everything down onto one board, and then just take it wherever they go. So they're always using the product that they're most comfortable with, that is designed and programmed just for their uses. So there's both the portability and the desk saving that are really kind of driving that trend. Plus, having smaller keyboards, it's kind of cool to show your friends, and it's a great avenue of customization with like cool custom keycaps. Which, by the way, with K60 and K100, we now have standard bottom row on our keyboards, which allows people to actually put whatever keycaps they want on it from any standard set available out there on the market, so they can really kind of show themselves off on their keyboards.
So you're using PBT keycaps, correct?
Yep.
On these new keyboards. What's the advantage of PBT?
So PBT is this really strong plastic. And with our PBT caps, it's not just a single shot. So if you do a single shot keycap, you can't get a backlit legend. We do 2 shots of plastic, one that's milky white PBT and then the other one that is black PBT. And so it kind of forms around. And the great part about this is it's really durable. It resists wear. It resists shine. So if you're familiar with ABS keycaps, basically it's one shot of ABS plastic, and then it's milky white. They paint it, they etch it, and they coat it. The coating starts to wear off because the oils in your hands and just kind of like, and the sweat just kind of like wear down the coating, and the legend starts to chip away. They get really shiny. They get really slick. So it's really not great for gaming. PBT, with the texture and the wear and shine resistance, just will last for a very long period of time. The legends will still look great. They'll feel great. And you just won't have this kind of same degradation. And with our new keyboards, with the K100 and the K60, these PBT caps are standard bottom row. So if you want to like swap them for a different set or kind of change them up a little bit here and there, yeah, you can absolutely do that. And one other thing I'll say about PBT is, when we launched K100, everyone loved the fact that we put PBT keycaps as standard on a premium keyboard. Like, especially, we've got a new font on it too that looks just really modern, really sleek. It's great. But also, we put it on one of our K60 models, the K60B RGB SE. And people that were reviewing the other models asked, "Well, where are the PBT keycaps? We've got ABS on those other models because they're a little less premium than the SE model." And people were asking, "Yeah, where are the PBT keycaps?" So it seems to me like the trend now is, it's more toward PBT, because customers are starting to realize they're really durable. They're going to last a long time. They're not going to become shiny, and they're just going to be a great experience in the long run. So I think you're going to start seeing PBT kind of become a little bit more of the norm, and ABS kind of, especially on like these really nice kind of more premium keyboards, kind of just go away.
Makes sense. I mean, you want a higher quality plastic. So, Jared, you are our graphics card expert, and obviously this week has been a big graphics card week once again. Well, we not as big as
last
when
week.
We had the last week, or as big as it will be when we have reviews of the Radeon cards. But how fast of a graphics card would you need to benefit from like a 0.5 millisecond input?
I mean, like, everything contributes to latency. I talked about this or wrote about this with NVIDIA's Reflex. I don't know, it's been a month and a half or something. But like, when you think about how long it takes from a mouse press or a mouse movement or key press to go from your hand to the display, well, it's like you've got anywhere from 0.5 milliseconds to maybe 14 milliseconds on your mouse and keyboard. Then that goes into your system, gets processed. That might take a little bit of time, and frame rate there is going to directly impact how much time that takes. So, if you've got a game that's running at, say, 250 frames per second, that's 4 milliseconds per frame. So you'd kind of get that like at least 4 milliseconds delay. But most games aren't running at 250 milliseconds. So, then if you're doing 60 frames per second, that's 16.7 milliseconds delay. And if you've got triple buffering, you know, that's more delay, more delay. So there's all sorts of things that go into it. And that's one of the things that like Reflex and AMD's anti-lag are looking at doing is basically if your CPU is sitting there rendering frames, but your monitor's only updating once every 60th of a second, they can go, okay, well, you've got these 3 frames queued, but when the frame or when the screen updates, we'll just drop these frames and go straight to this one, and that will reduce your latency, which is a nice feature. But you know, better than that is things like G-Sync and FreeSync and high refresh rates. So you know, that's kind of the holy grail, is if you have a really high refresh rate like one of these 240 hertz or 360 hertz monitors and a fast mouse and a fast keyboard, like you can get down to 20 to 30 milliseconds latency, which is, I mean, like that's super fast. Like I know sometimes people think that doesn't sound that fast, but 0.02 seconds, like you try and double press a button twice on a stopwatch and get like 200ths of a second, and you can see how quick that is. Where you notice latency a lot is it's probably more like 100 to 150 milliseconds that it starts to become really perceptible, and you're like, whoa, this just feels bad. So you know, we're down in the sub 100 millisecond range easily, and the fastest graphics cards will get you well under 50 milliseconds. And I think that's kind of like your ideal. If you're super competitive and you're playing a game like League of Legends or CSGO or whatever, I think honestly the graphics cards for those aren't even that high end. Like I would assume you could probably get an RTX 2060 or an RX 5600 and you're going to get hundreds of frames per second in a light game. But if you play like PUBG and you want to run at higher quality settings, then you're starting to look at the, you know, RTX 2080, RTX 3080, AMD's upcoming big Navi cards, the RX 6800, 6800 XT, like those will drive higher frame rates on more complex games. And, you know, it varies by game. So more complex engines, more complex graphics and geometry and AI. Like Ubisoft takes a lot of flack for this with their open world games. I was playing with Watch Dogs Legion, and you know, there's a ton of AI happening. All these people have routines and they're walking around the city and driving cars and flying drones, and it's like, yeah, I did computer programming. All of that is taking a lot of CPU time to manage, and so it's no surprise that your 6-core and even 8-core CPUs might struggle at times to get more than 100 frames per second. So
Javier asks us, says he can't believe that the keyboard can have that much latency. Have there been? I guess he's asking, have there been any studies that proved that the keyboard adds 8 milliseconds of latency, or 1 millisecond or 2 milliseconds?
Is he saying he thinks that's too high or too low?
I think he's saying that's too high. That it, I don't know. I don't really know a lot of the subject. Michael, do you know what types of studies people have done or on keyboard latency?
Yeah, so I don't think anyone's really done any serious study on this topic. We internally in our own engineering labs at Corsair have done a lot of work here, obviously. But basically what you would need to do is actually attach some sort of probe to the USB output of the keyboard, and that really detects when it's sent. And then you'd also have to have like a high-speed camera and also connect to the input, like the key switch itself, to determine the actuation speed to the actual output to the system. So on our keyboards, it's our lowest point is about 0.5 millisecond, and it can go anywhere from that to, like, I think the highest we've seen is like maybe 0.66. So there's of course obviously a little bit of variance, but even the kind of performance gaming keyboards you see out there in the market do 2 to 3, and then a lot of the other gaming keyboards I've seen are anywhere from like 8 to up to like 12, 14. It can actually absolutely be tested, but outside of our labs, I don't know that anyone is doing that kind of testing we're doing. And kind of to speak to, the pipeline of it, as you were talking about earlier, yeah, there's a lot of things that impact this too, like the system processing time, the software, the GPU, even your internet connection, right? So these are all pieces of that pipeline that especially when you're a really competitive gamer, you want them to be as fast as possible. So at Corsair, the only thing we can really focus on to help that pipeline is on our keyboards, and that's why we've got this AXON technology, and we're delivering as low as 0.5 millisecond, press to PC latency.
I mean, that makes sense. You gotta put it everywhere.
I'm like, when he says 8 milliseconds sounds too high, I'm like, never underestimate what a bad keyboard might do. I mean,
we've seen really slow ones,
nice,
actually.
Bad keyboards, even bad monitors. Like, I remember some of the earlier 24-inch LCDs where they added about 60 milliseconds of latency because, like, the screen, it would just buffer 3 frames, and it's like, oh yeah, it was awful.
I'm kind of curious about, you said that it speeds up typing. Have you done any tests with that where you saw somebody's typing speed go up from using the keyboard?
Just one example of that, actually. So we've got our team over in Korea. One of the biggest things in Korea are these. They're kind of these rhythm games where you have to press up to 10 keys at once. It's kind of like think of it like DDR or like Guitar Hero. It's just with 10 keys that you could need to be pressing in order to kind of keep up. And we've done a little bit of that with people that play those games and are really fast typists, and found that they do type faster, but they're also people that have kind of really honed in on their how they control their muscles in their fingers to make sure that as soon as the press actuates, they lift up and they're on to the next. But yeah, it requires a lot of practice and a lot of muscle control to really get the most out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I wish I were as fast as my computer. I feel like sometimes the human needs to get better. Like, I was so sad when I got 4K monitors recently, and I have to run them at 150% scaling rather than running them at 100%. It's like, my human eyes are not good enough for these monitors. I'm not good enough for these monitors.
That's why I tell you, Abram, you got to get a TV. I'm looking at a 4K 50-inch TV, and it has some latency, but it's pretty nice on my eyes.
I need new eyeballs.
Or become a cyborg. I mean,
yes,
maybe we're getting closer to that. I don't know.
Maybe we need the human.
Looking forward to the Corsair cyborg upgrades in the future.
I mean, we're already controlling the keyboard part of the pipeline. We just need to upgrade you now.
Exactly, because I need to be able to type fast enough to take advantage of the 0.5 millisecond response time.
When can I plug my brain directly into the computer and bypass the keyboard?
But to be fair, you don't need to be faster to take advantage of it. It's making you faster, because once you decide to make that press, it's going in faster than anything else you can get. So you're already getting an advantage, even if you're not like a pro-level League of Legends player.
That's fair to say. So there's a lot of advantages out there for folks who want to who want to use the right peripherals. So that's about all the time we have now. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. Folks, if you want to learn more about Corsair's keyboards, we obviously have some reviews on Tom's Hardware. And of course, there's the best place for folks to go to learn about Corsair products would probably be Corsair.com.
Yep, absolutely. Corsair.com. Easy to find.
Yeah, pretty easy to find. Thanks to all of you who tuned in. Sharon will be back next week, same time, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.